about when my dad, Audrey Hash, made his first fiddle. He was 10 years old, and the family was very poor. And he was hoeing corn for a neighbor, a guy named George Finley. And came up a terrible rainstorm, so George went in the house and got his fiddle and played. And he was so enthralled by the instrument that he went home and tried to figure out how he could make one for himself. Didn't have tool one, he had a little old penknife, so he sharpened a railroad spike to make a chisel. You can see the chisel marks, and so he chiseled out the sides. Okay. And he made a fiddle. Well, he didn't have any money to put strings on it. So, he was walking along the road, and a fellow was hoeing tobacco. He said, Albert, if you'll go to the store, it's like 5 miles, you go to the store for me and get me some snuff or tobacco. I'll give you a quarter. So Dad went to the store and he bought his fiddle strings. So he got his fiddle string. Then he needed a bow, in the worst way. So he thought it had to be white horsehair for some reason, and it didn't occur to him at 10 years old that you could cut the hair out of a horse's tail. He wound his fingers around it, and they hemmed the horse up in the fence corner, and it nearly jerked his arm off. Well, he had everything all done, and he made his bow out of a willow, I think. Plugged both ends, so he had a fiddle bow. Well, it wouldn't play. And he was so discouraged, and there was he says, a big heavy-set boy from down the road came, and he said, Albert, I know what your problem is. He said, you need rosin on that bow. So we went home. His daddy fiddled, apparently. He went home and got rosin and fiddled Dad 3 tunes, and Daddy climbed behind the wood stove and didn't come out until he had learned all 3 tunes. But look at this, look at how symmetrical this is. For a 10-year-old child now, with nothing to do with. And he pinned it together. Granny, oh, I think she got real mad. He borrowed the straight pins out of her pin cushion to put it together. But at any rate, this was what he finally ended up doing. Now, close attention needs to be paid to this eagle head, because he carved that with a pocket knife. Tongue and all. He didn't use any fancy carving tools. Carved it with a pocket knife. And I watched him do it, is the reason I know that he did. He carved a lot of heads. That's one thing I did beat him on. I carved the first woman's head, and then he decided he'd try. That was the only thing that I ever got ahead of him with. I decided, well, I will carve a woman's head. And he said, oh, that looks pretty good. He said, I believe I'll try me one. Well, went on. He had the most beautiful face, and the woman's hair was pulled back in a little knot, and went down the sides of the fiddle. And he said, Aubrey, he said, see what you can do with this, because I ain't no beautician. That's the only thing that, I helped him, you know, with the sanding and all that on a lot of instruments, but that's the only one he ever asked me to really put any effort into helping him with. But boy, it was sweet. Okay, first fiddle I made. that was before I knew everything, you know. The first fiddle I made, it played, and I was so astounded by the fact that it played. Dad said, you know, Audrey, it's a pretty daggone good fiddle. And it happened right along his birthday. And I said, well, Daddy, I tell you what, I'll just give you that fiddle for your birthday. He said, well, I'll tell you what, I'd rather have that than a brand new Cadillac. I said, it's a good thing, because I sure can't afford no Cadillac.
It's a good story.
It is a good story. And he kept it. It's still in the family, but I passed it on to my daughter because it would be kept, you know, and so forth. So I make them, Martha, for the love of making them. That's all. If I take a board and I say, wow, that'll make a good fiddle, and then start with that board and make a good fiddle, then, well, it's kind of like, all right, you watch someone walk on stage with an instrument that you have made from boards, and they play that fiddle. And that's the most awesome feeling. It's sort of like Steve Urkel on Family Matters. Did I do that? Well, you know. But it is, it never ceases to amaze me. That you, okay, there's a Latin quote, which I don't do Latin, so I can't quote it in Latin. Once I was silent in the forest, but now I sing.
That sounds good.
Which referred to the instrument.